Top Nation. I'm very excited today to have a guest, Jim McManus from Mentor Group Limited out of the UK. I will briefly read his bio and then we'll get into this week. Jim is actually one of the owners and directors of Mentor Group based out of the UK. And Mentor Group are a people and performance consultancy focused on sales transformation and organizational leadership that uses a no-nonsense approach and tools, outstanding technology, and the best people in the business to guarantee you incredible results and return on your investment. So welcome, Jim.
Hey, thank you very much, Corey. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, obviously, you're in this role with Mentor Group, and there was a background of how you and the partners have come together. Tell me a bit about the founder's story and how Mentor Group has come together and how you maintained the course since 2003, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Well, as you know, Corey, this marketplace that we're in, even though we're global, is very incestuous. So you come across people in all kinds, and your paths cross again. So I started in this performance development business probably about 20 years ago as a one-man band. I left corporate life and said, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to keep coaching and developing people. I had a real passion for that as a business leader in corporate life. So I set that up, and I started doing some work with some organizations, quite big organizations I was lucky enough to start with. And then I came across and did some work for my partner in Mentor Group, Chris Norton, where I became his coach, and we just became real good buddies. So we started working together, and then that was the foundation of really starting to form Mentor.
Excellent.
All that time ago, yeah. So
wow.
Yeah, about networking and connections and that type of stuff, yeah.
Now, since those beginnings with Chris, how has the company evolved, and what do you see moving forward with the company?
Yeah, I think I'd love to say, and you know, one day if I write a book to say, well, we had a strategy in 2008 to really get away from training courses, Corey. So off-the-shelf training courses, because we could just see that what was happening with that was that you really need to stack them high and sell them cheap, because they were very commodity in their way. And if we wanted to go that way, that would have been okay. But then we needed to have a big shelf and lots of programs. And you're going to be in that fast-moving, more commodity, price-driven arena. And we knew with the skill set and the passion that we had that we could offer more than that and make better money. So we focused more on providing performance solutions to help companies improve their sales performance. That was the main area. And we guaranteed return on investment if they invested in us. And we gave more bespoke solutions that were no nonsense approach. So that's what we did. You know, in 2008 also, you remember that's when the crash happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed strong through that and said, no, this is where we're going to go. And we came through it really well. But we had a few months there where it's so easy to fall back onto, let's just sell a load of these programs off the shelf. So yeah, that's what we did. So we held our nerve.
That's excellent. Well, and being in the performance consulting industry, you know, to fall into the trap of, you know, that commodification and becoming a commodity, which honestly I feel is a race to the bottom, because the only way to compete if you're a commodity is on price, and you know, whoever has the lowest price for something that's seen as similar, that's a race to the bottom, and eventually I see it as a snake eating its tail.
Yeah, but there are companies in our marketplace that are set up that way, and they do it very well. It was not our choice to go that way. I don't think I would have personally enjoyed running a company. That's not my style. So yeah, and Chris's as well. So we made the right decision. But as you know, Corey, when you make these decisions as a business, sometimes it's you have to breathe in a little bit and hold your nerve and keep believing in and doing what you know is to be right. Particularly when the financial pressures as they were in 2008, 2009, 2010.
Absolutely.
People were just cutting budgets, weren't they?
Well, it was certainly a different time. And, you know, I've been at this since the mid 90s. So
Yeah.
I've been through a few different cycles, but that was a unique time during that period of the mindset changing. And at times like that, and you know this, being in the industry, that's the last place you want to cut, is in the, you know, the development of your team and organization, because that's what's going to literally get you through. And hopefully you've budgeted and set aside the cushion to go behind that. But you know, with my background coming from the brokerage industry and that side of business, you know, I know a lot of it's just driven by short-term financial performance, and they aren't doing a lot of that longer-term planning for the next time this happens. And, you know, I think we're starting to see signs that that might actually happen again.
Yeah, well, we do have a habit of not learning sometimes. We think, oh, it was just that time, it'll be all right now. But yeah, some of the indicators are very similar. Very similar.
Yeah. Well, and it's finding those companies, I think, that are doing the right things and staying on that course, you know, to get ahead of the curve. Like, there's riding the wave, but then there's getting ahead of and being the wave ahead of the wave.
Absolutely.
And that's something I've actually seen with your company, Mentor Group, and that you're thinking well in advance of not what the pack is doing, but trying to get in front of the pack. And
yeah, we are actually, and we will make bold or brave decisions, because we do want to keep, we want that sense of as running the business as feeling a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, so that we make ourselves uncomfortable and push the boundaries in order to do things different for our clients, and challenge our clients as well to be different. You know, the big thing in our industry at the moment, Corey, as you know, is to develop people through a virtual medium in the most effective way possible. And we've come up with some really unique ways of giving that experience and pushing the boundaries on it, and probably making mistakes as well. But that's what we want to try and do. We're not one for sitting back on our haunches and going, oh yeah, we've cracked this. It's just not us.
Absolutely. We had Joe DeSena, the CEO from Spartan Race, on a while back, and he talks about the need for forced adversity. Like, we practice a lot of different things in sport. You know, people train and practice things. In business, we do sales training and role playing and practice certain things, but we never practice for the challenges and obstacles that we're going to face. And there's something to be said for doing that. Now, you talked about technology and some leading things that you're doing. Tell us a little bit about that. I know, in particular, the app is something that's been critical tool, you know, one of those no nonsense tools that's in the bio that you talk about. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really borne out for, if you look at big, large corporate organizations now, where everyone used to go to an office every day to work, that's changed globally now. People are home workers, they're remote workers, and they still have to create that community of belonging at a company. And what we're seeing is the development of those people is really important. And so bringing people together face to face is increasingly more difficult or challenging and costly. Yes. So we see the need to empower development to those people, increasing. And there's ways to do it. We can do it like we're doing now through these video technologies, Zoom. And we believe the importance of the technology now that's built into telephones and iPads and things like that. You can really use those devices to maintain and develop and keep people current in terms of development or product or market information. So that's where we've developed the app, what we call it, the Mentor Performance app, is to give short bursts of knowledge, skill, and intelligence to help them in their role.
Excellent. And I love that hybrid approach to training and consulting too, where we leverage technology with some of that richness of face-to-face and more traditional methods, but we need the flexibility.
Absolutely, but it's also getting people conditioned to learn that way as well. You know, I think if you probably look at the younger generation, they're more open to that type of learning. But there's a massive workforce that is not the younger generation, and sometimes we forget that and think, oh, we've got to make sure that the new guys, we're getting them latest technology. But you know, the older guys like ourselves, we can adapt to it as well. So we've got to make sure we cater for all and make it a usable interface, so all can develop and learn. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think, Corey, in my view, in the next 2 years, what you've seen the development in this remote technology, the app technology, what you're going to see in the next 2 years with artificial intelligence and bots and all this sort of stuff, it's going to go leaps and bounds. It's going to jump up tenfold, absolutely tenfold is what we see. So back to the other point we talked about trying to stay ahead of the curve. Yeah, we've got to run faster.
Absolutely. I was connecting with a buddy of mine from Silicon Valley, and we were talking a bit about this and the acceleration in this marketplace with, big data integration and AI, and how these are all great tools and that, but you also need to realize that there's humans behind all this who are using it, and need to be behind it. And we talked about a humanization of technology, or an acronym HOT. I don't know what it is about these 3-letter acronyms that I come up with, HOT, but and that's where I've seen Mentor Group actually shine, because you can embrace technology and what that brings to the table, while also having the humanistic side of the business and the art and the science kind of coming together and merging to develop the businesses and organizations you're dealing with.
Yeah, and I think there's great lessons to be learned as well. If you look at the webinar world and you look at e-learning, whilst it serves a purpose, I think you just got to make sure that the interaction for the individual is more engaging than an e-learning or webinar. They're good for passing information, but for learning and changing behaviors, personally, I don't think that's the best form. Knowledge increase, no problem, but changing behaviors and improving skills, no, I don't. My view, I don't see the e-learning and webinars are going to do that.
No. Well, and there's a huge difference between knowledge and competence.
Absolutely.
And, we need to be building competence with confidence. Yeah. And that doesn't happen through those traditional methods of
there's a place for them. You do need the knowledge. People do need, the knowledge to help them. But it's just separating the skills and the competence and the behaviors. Absolutely.
Yeah. And where I see that fit is that's kind of the minimum standard. That's a baseline where people start from. But if you're going to grow and become exceptional, either as an individual or organization, you can't play at that level, because that's the level everyone's playing at. And like we were talking about businesses becoming a commodity, that's a level that if that's what you're embracing and still operating at, you're probably stagnating at best.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
So talking about moving away from stagnation, what do you see as drivers of performance in businesses and organizations?
What do you mean by that, Corey? Help me out with that question.
So some would say like sales drive overall performance in an organization. Profits. It could be the people. It can be whatever sense you have. We've talked about tools and technology. What are some of those things that across industry and across continents, what do you see as kind of universal drivers of performance within teams and organizations?
Well, for me personally, I think it starts with your customer first. So start is what is that can you do to help your customer be even better what they want to do, and then wind it back, because sometimes you can start with, sales performance, profit indicators, these KPIs, all good, but they're inward facing, not outward facing. So I think real performance indicators should start with the customer. What do you want to do for your customers in the marketplace? And then drive it from there. And then set your KPIs, whether it's sales indicators, profits, customer services, those types of things. So that's where I see it from. What's going to make you, for your customer, even better than the competition? And then set your KPIs. I don't know if that answered that correctly for you, Corey, but that's my view.
Absolutely. And I love that you took that road, because the other KPIs are actually a lag measure.
Yeah.
Like, you don't see the result of that until after, whereas the driver is actually what you're talking about. Those are those lead measures and the things we have to focus on, that literally those other KPIs are an outcome of paying attention to the client and the customer, because without clients and customers, none of us exist.
Well, if you look, and I know they have pros and cons, but if you look at the Amazon experience over the last 5 years, they really make it you customer centric, about you, and make it easy for you to do what you want to do on Amazon, what you want to procure. And guess what? They're having more and more success because it's so easy. And that's why I think is, if we have our mindset of what is it we want to do for our customers and our marketplace, get that bit right, and then set your KPIs.
Excellent. Now, with that, has the marketplace and clients and customers changed, in the years since you started in 2003 to now? And how have you been adapting? How do we need to think the same or differently? What's stayed the same and what's different?
Well, I think and we see this with our customers as well. I think what's happening with the advent of technology and information and data that's available, a lot of people have quite a lot of information on what we do, the development world that we live in, performance world we live in. You can read it, you can Google it, you can YouTube it. There's lots of that data there now. So probably most people can get 80% of what wasn't there, 10, 15 years ago.
Right.
So I think what we have to do is to make sure in that 20% is we're focusing on topping up and really giving that value in that 20%, making them think about things they've not thought of, making them think about skills and behaviors that are missing in that 20% that can help them. So that's where I think we need to, that's what I've seen has changed over the period. And I see it with our customers as well. But definitely that's what I've seen has changed.
Absolutely. And I love that there's a transparency that comes with the access to information that everyone has, as well as getting up to speed. That 20%, I think that's where, the value is through the experience, because you can't feel and have an experience when you're getting it through those other means of, again, knowledge-based. There has to be an experience and something deeper of value, whether that's, exploring those behaviors and pain points, or, in delivery, whether it's through others and kind of referral, or through the conversation, the experience that people have, and that connectedness, and value alignment, not even value creation, but a value alignment has become increasingly important, I'm finding.
Absolutely. And what we're seeing also in our particular marketplace, Corey, is that our customers, realizing the importance of talent development, are actually developing in-house capabilities to support that development as well. So you can't provide same as. You've got to provide different. You've got to provide that bit that's of value to them as well. So they're the big things that I've seen change in the last number of years, and particularly, again, I think with the spurge of technology in the last 5 years, it's increased even more.
Excellent. And if we're future casting, what
Yeah.
are some adjustments in that you and Mentor Group are making? I know there's been an expansion from being a lot more European centric to opening up the North American market and the Asian markets a lot
Yeah.
more here recently. I know you brought on a great colleague in Daniel Weinfurter
Yeah.
in the States to open up the US operations. What are you looking at kind of moving forward, and what do you see as drivers for all organizations looking forward in terms of the talent development field?
Okay. Well, firstly, our customers are global, so we need to be global. So that's why we've had that expansion, and we deliver in, I think it's 26 or 27 different languages now with people around the world, and you have to do that because
Yes.
it's a global market. So we definitely see that as an area that we've got to keep growing and maintaining. I think what we also see is the need for more short, sharper, focused development performance interventions. So I think we're going to see more and more 45-minute, 90-minute type interventions, but very heavy on application in those times, getting people to practice to overcome a development gap that they have, or a confidence gap that they have. So I see more and more of that becoming prevalent in the marketplace, in the organizations. I don't know if that answers your question, Corey, but that's, yeah.
Absolutely. I know one of the things that organizations, and I think early on mistakes I've made in the training and development field is accountability. In the past, a lot of training and development was people just had to show up.
Yeah.
Where is accountability now in training and development? And I know in terms of proposals I put forward now, kind of the coaching and mentorship after kind of the competence building and confidence buildings there for the organization and its team, having some sort of ongoing support, to lift them up, but also to hold them accountable and to make sure that they've at least reached a level of competence in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, again, in the last number of years, probably as close to 60% of programs that we work on have that tail, have that lagging engagement with the management community and with the individual contributors to maintain that success. Because as you know yourself, when you go on a program for a day, what you retain 3 days later, if it's not reinforced or practiced, it'll just fall off, and you'll keep 1 or 2 golden nuggets. So that's what we're seeing really important. And I do see the management, the sales, particularly the sales management community, embracing that they need to maintain and focus on coaching to help improve the performance of their organization. And they're very comfortable setting these leading and lagging indicators with us to help them achieve it.
Absolutely.
So we definitely see that more and more.
Yeah. And I think one thing that a lot of organizations don't realize is, yes, there's an added cost, obviously, at the added time, but it's not that much more. And more importantly, and, hopefully you back me up on this, but the return on investment for that piece is where the biggest money is made.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
No.
And organizations are starting to feel that now and see that now. So then that creates a nice continuous movement on it. So you definitely, we definitely see that more and more. And also you just have to look at talent. If you lose key talent, the cost of replacing them in both time and money, if they've got a $1 million sales target and you lose that talent, it's at least 6 to 9 months before you even get back to even. So
Yes.
that's a lot. Forget the cost of the employee. Look at the revenue loss cost. It's tremendous.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, it makes me think in the past 2 years, and with 100% of the companies I've talked to, this issue of attraction and retention of talent is their number one kind of corporate concern.
Yeah.
because it impacts the financial. It's literally the biggest impactor for organizations. And after dealing now, with over thousands of organizations, I thought, what's the one kind of universal thing? And 100% in the past few years of organizations are saying the attraction and retention of people. And in a lot of our domestic markets, the domestic labor pool isn't enough to satisfy the demand for growing organizations. So we then have this whole diversity piece that comes into it, or different models of business. We can't literally continue to run our businesses the same because we aren't going to have the labor pool and the team that's around us in close proximity. So we need to be looking more globally.
Yeah, I think there's that, and what we've seen as well, and I'm sure you have, Corey, as well. There's a big drive in organisations now to take graduate entries into systems, into organisations, and bring them in and give them fantastic onboarding experiences in the first 6 or 9 months, and making them feel part of the organisation. Because if you can keep that talent and guide them in the way that you want them to work in your organisation and the values that are there, then you really are fostering a tremendous culture and environment for your organisation. So we're seeing a lot of organisations now have gone to that pool to look for talent for the future.
Absolutely. And I know for us, we've, invested in a company as well that is literally recruiting international talent.
Yeah.
Because those really strong talents that come, in our domestic markets, they know that they have the tail of the dog, so to speak, and they're wagon, and they can write their own checks. So we're looking at, how do we solve this if you can't win out? Because a lot of it's these large organizations that can acquire them and offer, maybe we can come in and offer a similar compensation package, but the benefits and pensions and that, for a lot of the small, medium-sized businesses, they just can't compete. So they're having to look externally. Yeah,
absolutely. I do find experiencing now that people, of course, compensation is really important, but I'm not sure it's the most important anymore, because people are taking it as a given. If I'm good at what I do, I'm going to do okay financially. So when you see an organization that suddenly offers 50% more than the rest of the pack, then people are smart enough now to go, okay, there's something else they want. There's something else there. So let me investigate, and am I happy with it? Because, they might get you to work twice as long, or there's double the stress, or whatever it is. And you have to make that decision openly. But there's always a reason why someone pays you 50% or 25% more.
Agreed. And corporate culture and that team cohesion and that, and well-being and flexibility. The millennials, this is why they're embracing the technology. It gives greater flexibility for all of us.
Yeah.
Look at us. We don't have to be in some big corporate office all the time to be able to have an international conversation like we're having.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago that we would have had to fly, be side by side, have a video crew, and here we are across an ocean, thousands of miles away doing this. And there's corporations that are using similar technology to link globally, whereas, it wasn't that long ago that this was, stuff in sci-fi movies.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I know. Definitely true. Definitely true.
Yeah. So you're a high performer and that yourself. What are some of the success habits that you personally have found effective for you in terms of your own individual development as well as for business?
Yeah, I think, Corey, it comes from my upbringing actually, and probably my parents who are Irish immigrants that came to the UK. That sort of work ethic, that hard work ethic, and that mental toughness were good stable blocks for me in going for performance. So, you know, when you hit tough times but you're confident in what you've got to do, I know your confidence can be hit a bit, but if you've got that work ethic and you've got that mental toughness, you can drive through it. So for me, they are good foundations to have. I think the other things as well is keep pushing yourself. Make yourself feel uncomfortable at trying new things. I mean, even today now, and like yourself, we've been in the industry a long time. I set out every year to learn 3 new things that's going to help me in my role and what to do. And I say this to people, very experienced people. If you go on a program or read a book or watch a video, and you go with the mindset to say, "Yeah, I know this," then you'll learn nothing. If you go on and say, actually, there are 2 or 3 things from this I want to learn, you will learn something. So even if it's
Absolutely.
the most basic thing or the most advanced thing, it's your mindset that helps you there. And I think that's been part of helping me keep my performance high. I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet, but that's where I would like to be. And I don't know if I'll ever get there because things keep changing. But yeah, they would be that way. Be open to learn, be open to change as well. Change is not a bad thing. It's not a weakness. If you're going in the wrong direction and the road is just a bit the wrong way, then change the road to get to where you want to go to. So yeah, that. They would be the things for me. Yeah, hard work, mental toughness, learning, agility, ability to change. Yeah, definitely.
I love it. I also hear in there courage and confidence,
Yeah,
but also humility, you know. And I loved your example of going into training and not, you know, thinking you're the know-it-all. And I mean, as trainers, when we're out there, we see this sometimes in the audience. And I take great pride because I share this with you. I'm probably taking more notes than anyone else in that room.
yeah.
And I don't care if it's a great presentation or workshop or a shitty one, because with the good ones, I'm taking the nuggets. With the bad ones, I'm looking at what I might not do, you know, for my
Exactly.
own personal development in terms of presentations or, you know, those landmines that, you know, we've all seen the spectrum. So I love that. And there's a humility in doing that and that hard work ethic. No one's received any level of success without putting in the work.
No, I remember, and sorry to name drop, but I was a little while ago, a few years ago, the American guy, the performance guru, Tony Robbins.
Yes.
So I met him at an event. We were invited to this event, and we met afterwards personally, Chris and myself, just with him. We felt really honoured.
Oh, that's
But I
awesome.
went along to this event for the first 3 hours, and it drove me mad. And my mindset was, this guy is just too American for me. Forgive me for saying it, but he was loud and brash, and I was like, Jesus Christ. And then they were talking about going off to one of these events for 3 or 4 days in Florida. And I said, I'm not going for 3 or 4 days. I said, I can't, just drive me mad for 3 hours.
I
And
was
then I met him.
exhausted. I
Yeah,
was exhausted at his event.
yeah. Unleash the Power Within, I think it's called. Anyway, when I met him, I told him this. I said to him, look, Tony, I don't know. He goes, you're blinded. You're a Brit. You're reserved. And that's how you are. And it made me change. I said, okay, I'm going to come and I'm going to learn 3 or 4 things. And I had a different experience, a very different experience. So if I was to give advice for myself, the first 3 hours I would have said, learn 2 or 3 things. And I didn't. I closed my mind. And so I missed the opportunity to learn anything because I was so focused on going, Jesus, you're a loud American. But
And
we all do that. And I'm guilty of it as well. And sometimes you have to just pull yourself back and go, hold on a minute here.
Yeah, and Carol Dweck out of Stanford wrote a book on called Mindset, and it talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And I think it's when we create our own roadblocks, literally when we aren't open like that, we're creating that fixed mindset in our own roadblocks and not open to the growth and learning. And I don't know about you, but the more I learn, the more I'm finding I have a hell of a lot to learn.
Yeah, and that's what your question you asked me earlier about performance. That's why I don't think I'm ever going to get there, because there's always things that you can get better at and better at and better at, and I want to get better and better. So yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Well, it's interesting because I just had breakfast with a guy who just came second at the World Championships in shot put, and we're talking about this. And here's a guy who is prepping for the Olympics, and is arguably at one of the top levels. And depending on the time of year you look, he's one or two pretty consistently. And he has that mindset. And it would be very easy when you're at the top of the mountain to get complacent. But those champions and world-class people I've met have that hunger and desire that you're never there. Like you've never fully arrived. And, the reality is none of us are perfect and walk on water unless it's frozen.
No, absolutely. Absolutely right. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So with the last little bit of time we have, I like to ask, people we have on the show, if you're sitting down at your 100th birthday celebration, who would you like to have there, Jim? And what would you like them saying about you?
Oh, really easy, Corey. Family and friends.
Excellent.
And I'd like them to say, what a decent person Jim is.
And what does that mean? What does a decent person mean to you?
I think someone that has high integrity, that's honest about what they are. They've got good values. So that's what I mean by a decent person. They've got good integrity, good values. They're compassionate. They're honest. They're trustworthy.
Excellent.
So thank you for asking me that. I wouldn't have got to that, the down behind the decent, but that's what I mean by decent. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that, Jim. And, as I've gotten to know you over the past, year, well, probably 6 months, it's more realistic. I've come to see a lot of what you're saying. So, and I thank you for the opportunities where we've had to work together and for taking the time to be on the show. I know it's a very, very busy time for Mentor Group right now, and to take the time during one of the busiest weeks of the year for you guys for this podcast, I really appreciate it.
No, Corey, I'm delighted that you asked me. I hope it gives you from this podcast what you're looking for, and if it's not, give me a shout and we can do something different. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the conversation with you. Thank you so much. A real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And thank you, Hop Nation Podcast, for paying attention, and look forward to seeing you on the next week when we release the next one. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.